ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa has vowed that the party's 6th National Policy Conference will bring solutions, discuss and address critical issues that concern the execution of the National Democratic Revolution. Ramaphosa was addressing the party's National Policy Conference in Nascrec, Johannesburg. Ramaphosa says despite the many challenges that the country faces, the ruling ANC has solutions.
Many people in our country, including the media, expect this to be a conference where we are going to fight amongst ourselves and differ widely on a variety of matters of politics and ideology. We will demonstrate, as we often do, and in accordance with ANC tradition, that where we might have different views and approaches on various matters, we are always able to build and find consensus and emerge with coherent policy positions. So we promise the media and others who are doubtful that we will come out of here with clear policies, coherent positions, because we are the African National Congress.
For more, we cross to our SABC News political reporter, Natasha Phiri. Good afternoon, Natasha. What is the latest that has been happening at Nascrec?
Well, that concludes the opening address of ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa as he opens the 6th National Policy Conference of the ANC. Of course, before him, we had alliance partners, the General Secretary of the SACP, Mr. Solima, giving his messages of support, and of course, COSATU President Zingisalosi. But of course, just to unpack what we heard earlier from the three, I'm joined by none other than a political analyst, Professor Susan Booysen. Prof, thank you so much for joining us on SABC News. I mean, you heard what the president had to say, but before we go into and before we unpack his speech, perhaps let's just talk about the messages from the alliance partners. They did not hold back at all. I mean, Solima Paila is saying that this policy conference is a deal breaker. Delegates of the ANC are given a mammoth task to save the ANC internally and externally, but also he called out the ANC president there, saying that before this policy conference should have taken place, there should have been an economic alliance summit to actually inform discussions around economic recovery.
Yes, indeed. You know, this is very much a story of this conference, that the processes due to COVID and organizational matters for the ANC not being as effective as it should be, the organization of this conference didn't actually unfold as it should have been. Of course, it should have been National General Council, and they only did the essential things like ensuring that the provinces, most of the provinces were meeting, but that the branches got their meetings in place and got that rolling. So it is a compromise on many of the processes, but I can sympathize with the alliance partners for really feeling they haven't had one of their conventional strong platforms for getting their lobbying done for what policy should be going into this conference. But then we know that's also the name of the game. It's the ANC branches that really rule the day at this type of conference.
And Prof, I like the fact that you actually mentioned the NGC. I mean, how important was it to actually, have the NGC with actually the policy conference?
NGC is really an important measure for the ANC because it's halfway between the national elective conferences, and that is really a policy-focused event. It's kind of a traffic control of where are the policies going, what progress are we making in terms of implementation. So it's crucial for policy making. We know that it was COVID restrictions and so on, and really had a big impact. But still, I think more could have been unfolding in virtual form along the way.
We heard Zingisalosi saying that the ANC has somewhat formed a vicious attack on the workers, on the plight of South African workers, and also including ANC workers as well. I mean, we came to a policy conference. We saw yesterday ANC employees protesting, saying that they haven't been paid.
Yes, indeed. Of course, it is going to be the COSATU line. That is the mandate they come with, and they have to try to bargain at this late stage for as much as possible and emphasis on the workers. It is indeed sad that the ANC workers had to picket in order just to get basic salaries paid.
Prof, do you see, I mean, ANC, coming to the ANC president's speech, he had said that the ANC needs to emerge with clear and coherent policies. Will we actually see that? I mean, one thing about the ANC, people, just judging from the general public and what the general public have been saying, that it's always all talk and no implementation at all.
Yes, that is such a vexing issue for the ANC, because what we see so far in the policy documents that we have in this almost 200-page document, they are not exciting alternatives. It's good on stock taking as to what has gone wrong, and Cyril Ramaphosa in his speech actually echoed that well. Very good on the policy problems that need to be solved, and the fact that there has not been effective implementation, and how distance of ANC representatives from the people often help introduce and sustain distance between ANC and the people. Ramaphosa was big in his speech to say this is, in line with the alliance partners, really a deciding moment for the ANC. It is truly so, because the problems all around us, there are so many crises, dimension problems in South Africa, and so far we do not see the possible solutions in their policy documents. So it will be up to these delegates, going by how they've been employed to do by the president, to really come up with solutions. Where so far good minds, big minds have put their resources into these policy documents, have not done so. And we're seeing the ANC leadership really not giving that direction to the ordinary delegates and the people in general. Very important too about Ramaphosa's speech is that towards the end he was really emphasizing that the ANC should not go back on its good resolutions, correct resolutions of the 54th 2017 conference, and that he was saying particularly with reference to clearly, he didn't mention Step Aside by the Step Aside name.
But we all know he was actually referring to Step Aside.
We know when we see Step Aside, no, not. And he said they dare not go back on that, and that is the right way to go. And that the ANC really has got this time to really redeem itself. And he stressed that the voters of South Africa will not be forgiving if the ANC steps away from that.
But it seems that right now there is really no clear policy on the step-aside resolution. You've got provinces that are vowing to battle it out when it comes to this very policy of step-aside resolution.
Yes, indeed. We've seen several other provinces, maybe about half of them, indicating of opposition to it being retained, at least in current form. So I suspect it's going to be a big debate. I've also heard that leaders really want to prevent it from the conference being bogged down by the step aside. And I believe what Natasha said, maybe it should be referred to a commission. But we know if past ANC conferences is anything to go by, if the delegates decide they want to debate it, they will be debating it.
Let's talk about the issue of, the state capture and corruption policy document. I covered that briefing with the ANC's policy head, Mr. Jeff Radebe. The president also reiterating today that the party needs to end all forms of state capture. It's quite alarming that Jeff Radebe had told members of the media earlier on this week that 200 or so or more ANC members are actually implicated and fingered in the state capture reports. And of course, those names need to be verified. Is this not an indictment on the party that says they want to end all forms of state capture and corruption?
Yes, and then ask many other people themselves who are implicated or to deliberate on themselves or on their political principles. So that is really, really a big ask for an ordinary conference. And leaders really kicking the can down the street to delegates at a conference where they themselves have not been taking the lead, when they themselves have not been showing the conviction to step up and say there's no negotiation about that, because it's such a divided ANC. They know they dare not tell the ordinary branches and regions and provinces there is no way to negotiate about that. So it's really the ANC being in a double bind and being at a moment where they really will be deciding their own fate. And I don't see at this stage how it is going to escape from this double bind.
I mean, you have an ANC that says it is serious on eradicating corruption, but on paper it sounds all good. Is there really a political will to actually eradicate corruption within the governing party? I mean, earlier on, the NEC had stated that members of the ANC need to present themselves before an integrity committee who are implicated in the State Capture Commission, but we haven't seen that so far.
No, and we know when they do, in those small, tiny, minute numbers that have been doing it, it is a slow process and often comes with a little slap on the wrist and say, something vague about not doing it again or really repenting it, etc. So we know those internal processes of the ANC have really not been very convincing at all. So it is going to be a huge, huge task for the ANC, if it's possible for the ANC, because we really see an organisation unfolding, a new type of organisation that is really becoming new, different. And I do not think this conference is a mechanism to get it on any other more optimistic route.
Prof, thank you so much for your time. Of course, we will continue with these conversations, everything to do with the policy conference of the ANC, where various discussion documents will be, under scrutiny by these delegates that will be discussing them and elaborating on these policy discussion documents of the ANC. Of course, as SABC News, we're still here, camping here, giving you rolling coverage of the 6th National Policy Conference of the ANC.